So we're holding the Gemara towards the bottom of Daf Chav Tes Amud Beis, 5 lines from the bottom. The first word on the line is Marka. Sagt the Gemara, Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, Kol Shehu Lifton, anything that's used as a dish that you eat together with the main Suda, together with bread, Kidei Lechol Boi, so you have to have enough of that in the Eirov to eat together with bread. You don't have to have enough for a full Suda because it's only eaten as a Lifton. Kol she'ene lifton, something that's not used as a secondary together with bread. Kedei lechel leimenu. You have to have enough of an amount for your eirov to eat from it 2 sudas. Basar chai, when you eat raw meat, if you remember, we have a few times in Gemara in different places that in those times it was a normal thing to eat raw meat. So therefore, raw meat, it says kedei lechel leimenu. You have to have enough to be able to eat from it because people eat it itself as a suda. Basat sali, roasted meat. Do people eat roasted meat separately or do people eat it together with bread? Rabba makadei lechel boy. Rabba says with roasted meat you have to have enough to eat from it, people eat it alone. Rav Yosef amar kadei lechel heimenu. Roasted meat, it's enough if you have from it that's eaten together with bread because people eat it together with bread. Amar Rav Yosef, said Rav Yosef, mina min Allah. How do I know that roasted meat is something that people eat with bread? The hani parsoi achli tavhaki beloi. So it's the other way around. Sorry. So let me go back a second. Rav Yosef Amar. So again, Rabbi said kedei lechel boy. Rabbi said that it's the derech of the people to eat roasted meat together with bread. Rav Yosef is the one that said kedei lechel heimenu, that people eat the roasted meat by itself. So now Rav Yosef brings a raya for this from the Anhaga of the Persians. Am Rav Yosef mina mila, the hani parsoi achli tavaki b'loi name. The Persians, so they eat pieces of roasted meat without any bread. Amalei Abaye. So Abaye asks Rav Yosef, uparsoi averu b'dalma. Are the Persians the majority of the world? Why are you bringing a raya from the Anhaga of the Persians if most people don't do this, so we can't apply this to anybody else? Right, the Gemara asked this. The Gemara we learned yesterday as well, a similar shaila. And the Gemara brings a Mishnah or a Braisa. Va'tanya big day aniyim la'aniyim. So this is halacha. We once learned this in Shabbos. Benigeh to the minimum size of a cloth that's makabel tumah. So for poor people, it's a small garment that poor people would use. What's the smallest garment for poor people? 3 etzbois, 3 finger breadths. Big day ashirim la'ashirim. For ashirim, for rich people, such a small garment is worthless. It has to be at least 3 tfachim. So there's different measurements for different people. It's not the same thing. When you get being makabel tumah, that it should have the halach of a beged. Then the Gemara is medayik now. Aval big day ashirim la'aniyim loy. Regarding poor people, we don't require it to be a larger size of 3 tfachim in order for it to be makabel tumah. Every person according to his level. So what do you see over here? You're not going to apply what's to one person to another person. So the same thing, you're not going to apply the custom of the people in Persia, in Paras, and the Persians, that it applies to everybody else, that they eat the meat alone. So to Gemara, maybe we could say, no, maybe the point is that we always go l'chumra. When it comes to big diyaniyim, we're being machmer. We're being machmer that even a smaller garment that's only 3 finger breadths will be makabel tumah. And over here, benigeh to eirov, we're also going to be machmer. And we're going to say that regarding roasted meat, you need enough of an amount like the people that eat it alone. So maybe we're just going l'chumra. So the Gemara brings another raya. And here it brings a raya benigeh to eirov itself. Tanya, we learned in the Braisa, Rab Shimon ben Elazar Omer, ma'arvin l'chaylo l'zakin. If you're making an eirov for a sick person or an old person that doesn't eat a lot, kedei mezayne, according to the amount that he eats, or l'ravsen, a person that eats a lot, b'suda beininis. For him, a regular suda is going to be good. So what do you see over here? B'suda beininis shel kol adam, that is. You read it together. A suda beininis of regular people. So you see over here that you don't apply the amount of food that's needed for an erev by all people the same, and you're going to be machmer. You're going to be machmer for zaken and chayla and say that you need the regular amount of food. For him, it's enough less. So if so, our question is, why did the Gemara before say, why did Rav Yosef say that you have to have enough meat like it's eaten separately? Most people don't eat it separately. They eat it together with bread, so it should be enough, much less. So the Gemara, Kashya. The Gemara doesn't answer this question. Now the Gemara goes back to what we just said, that a person that's a ravsen is a person that eats a lot. But for him, we measure a Suda Baininus, the average Suda that a person eats. So the Gemara is going to focus on this detail now. Did Rab Shimon ben Elazar say that a person that eats a lot, so the shear for him is average? Vatanya, Rab Shimon ben Elazar says regarding a different halacha that you don't go with average. Oig melech habashan, a very large person. Oig melech habashan is just a mashal, but the point is a very large person. What is this brayso talking about over here that the Gemara quotes now? It's talking about a mace. There's a halacha of tumas oil by a mace. But it's not only tumas oil, also a doorway. Even if you have an oil, and there's a door that's closed, so outside of the door, under the doorpost, so l'chayre, the tumas oil doesn't reach there because it's on the other side of the door. But there's a gzeira of Chazal that because the mace is going to be brought out through that door, so therefore the doorway is tummy. How about if you have a few different door openings where you don't know where the mace is going to come out from? So if you have an opening that's 4 by 4 tfachim, that's the place that's big enough to take the mace out, and that place is going to be tameh. So now what Rab Shimon ben Elazar is saying over here is, how about if you have the body of a mace that's very big, and 4 by 4 tfachim is not big enough to take out this body? So Rab Shimon ben Elazar, so then Pischei Kimaloyai, the Pesach that's large enough to say that the mace is coming out through there has to be as big as his body. So what do you see over here? Rab Shimon ben Elazar says you have to measure according to how large a person is. And over here Rab Shimon ben Elazar is saying a rafson, a person that eats a lot, you just go to the shear of average, of what an average person eats. And for the Gemara, Abaye said regarding this question, Hassam, over there it's a much more extreme thing. Heichi levet, what should you do? Hadumi nahadmi v'nafke. You're going to take this body of the mace and you're going to cut it up and take out his body. Obviously, you could only take out the body full, intact. So therefore, over there has to be a larger opening to take it out. Over here, even a person that is a rafson that eats a lot, but if he eats beinoni, he's also like a guessing epis. It's not as extreme as in that case. So therefore over here, even by a rafson, a person that eats a lot, we go according to the average amount that a person eats. Now the Gemara brought up the story about the mace that that Rab Shimon ben Elazar holds that you don't go according to the average. So the Gemara asks, pligi Rabbanan aled Rab Shimon ben Elazar. Do the Rabbanan argue on Rab Shimon ben Elazar? Or do they not argue on Rab Shimon ben Elazar? So the Gemara brings a brayse. Toshema the Omer Rabba Babachan Omer Rabbi Yechanan Oig Melech Habashan Pischai Barba. Even a person, a mace that's as very big, like Oig Melech Habashan, but the opening in the oil for the tumah to be there on the doorpost of that opening is barba, like every mace. 4 by 4 tfachim, as I mentioned before, that's the average size by every single mace. So what do you see over here? L'chayri, you see that the Rabbanan must have argued. Because of Rabbi Yechanan is saying this, so who's he saying this? He's not saying it according to Rab Shimon ben Elazar, he's saying it according to the Rabbanan, that an average size is good enough for the tumas oil to go there. So the Gemara answers, no, it's not a raya. Hassam, that statement of Rabbi Yechanan could be speaking about a case, the ikib sachim ktanim tuva. Any of the other openings that this oil had were very, very small. Ve'ikechad ahavarba. And there was one opening that's 4 by 4 tfachim. The vadai, ki kamarvach pahu kamarvach. They're going to have to break open a place to take out this large mace. But what are you going to break open? Any of the other very, very small openings? A place that's already 4 tfachim, that's probably going to be the place that they're going to break open to go out. So even though it's not large enough, over here, even Rab Shimon ben Elazar would be made that it's likely that this is the place they're going to break open to take out the mace. The Gemara goes back to the din of Eiruvin, Omer Rav Chiya bar Rav Ashi Omer Rav. Ma'arvin b'basar chai. Like we said before, you can make an Eiruvin with raw meat. Omer Rav Shimi bar Chiya ma'arvin b'beitzim chayis. You could also make an Eiruvin with raw eggs. The kama, how many raw eggs? Omer Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Sinai Omar, Sinai said shtayim, 2 raw eggs. Who's Sinai? Sinai is Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef is called Sinai in the Gemara because he was a very big baki. Rashi says he was baki b'mishnayis to b'braises. So therefore he says, the Gemara calls him Sinai. It's interesting that the Gemara calls him Sinai. Punkt dafka over here, benegate to this halacha. Okay. Sagt the Gemara, Hanoidim in Amazon, Mutter b'mayim. Going back to the first mission of the Perek. So what did it say? A person that makes a neder, not to eat any food that will nourish him, he's allowed to eat, he's allowed to drink water and eat salt. Sagt the Gemara, Melech u'mayim huduloi ikri mazayin. Only water and salt are not called food that nourishes. Hakol mili yikri mazin. Everything else nourishes a person. Is that true? If so, this refutes a statement that Rav Shmuel said. The bracha of Beirei Minem Zaynes, that the Eibusha creates food that nourishes you. That's a bracha you make only on the Chameshes Aminin, on the 5 grains. So we see that anything other than the 5 grains don't nourish a person. And over here we say, Adarabah, anything other than water and salt does nourish the person. Didn't we already refute the statement of Rav and Shmuel once from a different brisa? So the Gemara says, you're right, but now we have a raya against Rav and Shmuel from our Mishnah here as well. So Rav Huna answers, no, it's not a question. Rav Huna, ba'omer kol hazon olai. When a person says anything that can be a source of nourishment for me. Mayim umela chudulay zaini. Water and salt will not be a source of nourishment. Hakol mili zaini. Everything else gives a person nourishment. So the Gemara is really saying there's a difference between the grains. The grains, which you make a bracha b'yre minim mizainis, they are not just nourishment. They satisfy a person. It's a mazain that fully satisfies a person. Mashenki and all other foods, they're a source of nourishment. It doesn't satisfy a person. It's a midi dezayin. It gives a person nourishment. Water and salt doesn't give nourishment at all. That's the chiluk. Rabbi Bar Chana said, and we had this in the Gemara in Brachas, Ki hava zilna basrei de Rabbi Yochanan. When we would walk together with Rabbi Yochanan, lemechal peri de genoisa, to eat these special fruits that were from genoisa. Rashi says this is by the Kineres and Eretz Yisrael. Ki hava hinam bei meya, if there were 100 people that were walking with us, hava min aktina l'chol chad v'chad asara asara, each one of us would collect 10 fruits. So they had 100 fruits. And ki havina be'asara, if it was 10 of us that was walking together with Rabbi Yochanan, hava min aktina l'chol chad v'chad meya meya. So each one of us had 100 fruits. Together that is. All 10 of them together they had 100 fruits. Or each one of them collected 100 fruits. Again, if there were 100, so each one collected 10. Okay? And if there were 100, if there were 10, each one collected 100. So they had 1,000 fruits that they collected. That's what it is. They collected 1,000 fruits. And now he says, V'chol meya minayu, each one of these 100 fruits that we collected, lo yav machzik lahu tzana bas tlose savi. A basket as large as 3 saw, a basket as large as 3 saw was not large enough to hold these fruits. So you're talking about a lot of fruits over here. Big fruits. Yeah, and the big fruits. And Rabbi Yochanan would eat all these fruits. And after he finished eating, he said, I make a shvuah that I wasn't tame, I did not get nourished from all these fruits that I ate. So what do you see over here? That Rabbi Yochanan was saying that he did not get nourished. So what are we saying in our Mishnah? That everything else gives a person nourishment besides water and salt. Here, Rabbi Yochanan is saying that he did not get nourishment from this. And for the Gemara, Eime Mizaina. Again, the difference is between Ziyuna and Mizaina. What he was saying was that he wasn't fully satisfied. It wasn't totally Mazain. But Ziyuna, yeah, of course it gave him nourishment, but not Mizaina. Not to be satisfied. I'm not sure if the pshat in this Gemara is kipshutai, or it's a guzma, or it's something in Indian miyuchad over here with these 1,000 fruits that he ate. Okay. So going back to the point that we mentioned before about a person that makes a neder, a shvuah. Shvuah shaloi eichel kikerzu. How about if a person makes a shvuah that I'm not going to eat this bread? Ma'arvan leiba, he could still use it for an eidov. True, he made a shvuah, he's not going to eat it, but we already saw in the Mishnah when a person has something he's not allowed to eat, for example, a nazir that's not allowed to eat wine, a yisrael that's not allowed to eat truma, you can still use it for a native. How about if he says kikar zu olai? I make a neder that this kikar should be asa b'hana to me. That's a very different story. Now it's completely asa b'hana. So then Rav Huna said you can't make a neder with it because when he used this lashon olai means it's going to be asa b'hana.
Other people can still use it.
Other people could use it. Yeah, other people could use it for eidov, but he can't. If he uses the lashon olai, it's asa b'hana. If he's using it for eidov, he's having a no from it. Meisvei, so the Gemara asks from a brayse, it says, "Hanoidim in a kikar." You make a neder from a kikar, ma'arvan leiba. You can still use it as a native. My love, the Omar Alai, isn't the pshat that the person said Alai, that he used this term of Kikar Zu Alai, that's the usual lashon of a neder, so he made it, that lashon Alai sounds like he's making it Asa Bahana. It's a question on Avhuna. So the Gemara Alai, that's not the pshat. The Omar Zu, the person said, I'm making a neder not to eat from this bread. According to Rashi, the difference between Zu and Alai is more mashma, Isra no. Zu is mashma that I'm not going to eat it. And that's what the Braisa meant, so it's not a question on Avhuna. Ochanami mistavra. The Ktani, the Sefer, the continuation of the Braisa, is when can't you use it if you made a neder? A Masai bizman sha'oma shvur shaloya tomeno. If he said, I make a shvur that I'm not going to taste it. So the Braisa is spelling out clearly that you can't use this food for an Eirov if he says that he's not going to taste it. Aval Omar Alai, so now the Gemara says, so what are you saying? But if he says Alai, uses the Lashon Alai, which is mashma, that he's not going to have a no from it, so then he can't use it for a native. So if so, let's go to the next part of the Braisa. What does it say? The Tani, it says afterwards in the Braisa, Kikar zu hektish. If I say that a bread is hektish, then so then he can't use it for a native. The halacha is that with hektish you can't use a native, even though truma you could, but with hektish you can't use it for a native. Why is the Braisa going so far? Liflei v'lisni b'didei. The Braisa could have made a distinction even before you get the hektish. In the lashon of the neder that the person makes, the Braisa should have said, if a person says, I will not eat from it, clearly he says, I'm not going to eat from it, so then he could still use it as a native. Aval Omar Olai, if he uses the term Olai, which is mashma, that he's saying that it's Asa Bahana, so then he can't make a native. So why is the Braisa skipping a step here? Why is the Braisa going to a case where he made it hektish? So Amalach Rav Huna will answer you, Elamai kol heiche the Omar Olai. They skip something? What? Amalach Rav Huna, so Rav Huna says, kol heiche the Omar Olai ma'arvin. Anytime a person says Alai, he could make a native. So now if so, the Kashi Reisha, it's going to be a question from the Reisha, where in the Reisha it's mashma that if he says Alai, then he can't make a native, because the Reisha is saying that only if he said Zu, that's how the Gemara Text it, only if he said Zu, then he could make it a native, but if he said Alai, then he can't make it a native. I'm not sure if I read this right over here. Okay. So the Gemara Chasuri Mechsere. You're right. There's a question over here. Kashi Reisha. So for the Gemara, there's a question from the Reisha of the Braisa, and for the Gemara Chasuri Mechsere. There's something that's missing over here in the Braisa. In other words, the problem of the Gemara is that the Reisha and the Sefer are a stira to each other. From the Reisha, it's mashma that if you say Alai, you can't make it as a native. From the Sefer, it's mashma that if you say a lie, you could make it as a native. Why? Because the Sefer said only if you said that it's hektish, then you can't make it as a native. But if you said a lie, you could make it as a native. So there's something missing over here in this Braisa. Chasuri mechsere v'hachi ketani. This is where you have to read the Braisa. Hanoidim in akikar ma'arvan loiba. A person makes a neder not to use this kikar, he could still use it as a native. Va'afile omar alai. Even if he does use the term alai, you can still use it as a native. Why? Even if he uses the term alai, we don't interpret his shvua to mean that I'm not going to have a no from it at all. We interpret his shvua to mean that I'm just not going to taste it. I'm not going to eat it. If so, if that's how you're reading the pshat and the reisha of the Braisa, in order for it to fit with the Sefer, so you're saying even when the person says a lie, it only means that I'm not going to taste it, but it doesn't mean that he's not going to have a no of it. So now this is a question on Rav Huna. Because according to Rav Huna, once you say a lie, that means that you're not going to have a no at all, so it's not an native at all. So so it's taka kasha from this Braisa, and the Gemara brings another source. The Omak Rav Eliezer. Rav Huna goes according to Rav Eliezer. The Tanya Rav Eliezer mishvu shalayechol kikazu ma'arvan leitba. If you use the term of kikazu, so then you still could use it as a native. Kikazu alai. If you use the term alai is mashma that it's also bahana a ma'arvan leitba. Then you can't use it as a native. So we see another brayso that says exactly like Rav Huna said. There's a difference between zu and alai. Fact the Gemara, is this the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer? Or mi Amar Rabbi Eliezer hachi v'Tanya? There's yet another brayse where we see that Rabbi Eliezer said different. V'Tanya, the brayse says the klal regarding using food that you made a neder from for an erev is as follows. Adam oiser atzmai beichel. Again, it depends on the lashon that the person said, but the Tanakama of this brayse focuses on another detail. Adam oiser atzmai beichel. If the person says, "I am oseh to eat," so then ma'arvin leibah. Then you could make an erev from it. So Rashi explains in this lashon, what its mashma is, the act of eating I will not do. The pu'ul of me eating will not be done. But it doesn't mean that any anah that comes to you memela, you won't have any anah from it. When you put it down as an erev, so now that automatically creates a hana that you can walk through this erev, that's not included in your neder. But if the person uses a different lashon, Oichel hanesa loila adam, a person says, this food should be asa to me. Not the act of eating, but this food should be asa to me. So then that means any hana, eim arvan loiba, even hana that comes memela through using it for an erev will also be asa. Rabbi Eliezer says, kikarzu alai, if you use the term kikarzu alai, ma'arvan loiba, you can still use it for an erev. Even though he said alai, it only means that he's not going to eat it. Kikarzu hektish. If he's saying that it's hektish, then ein marvin leibah. Then you can't use it as a native. If you should ein marvin begdeshes, because you can't use hektish for an native. So right over here we clearly see that Rabbi Eliezer holds, even when he uses the term alai, that it's that you can't use it for a that you could use it for a native. Before Rabbi Eliezer said that you can't use it for a native. So we have a stira. And for the Gemara, trei tanoi v'aliv de Rabbi Eliezer. There are two tanoim, different shittas in the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. I read the Gemara here according to Rashi's Pshat, and Rashi says the whole discussion is Gemara between the lashon of zu and alai is that zu means achila and alai means hana, but they're both either a shvua or either a neder. The Rashbam here has a Pshat, and the Tosfos brings here b'shem the Rashbam a Pshat that the difference between the zu and alai is the main focus of the Gemara is the difference between a shvua and a neder. What's the difference between a shvua and a neder? So the Gemara in the Darim says a shvua is a issa gavra. That the person says that I won't have enough from this, but the chefza itself remains mutter. I just can't derive benefit from it. A neder, you're asking the chefza itself. You're making the chefza, the object itself, a davar aser. So the same thing when it comes to eruv, when the person asks on himself, but the chefza remains a davar mutter, it could be used for the eruv. But once you ask the chefza itself, then you can't use it for an eruv. So it's a more lamdish pshat in the Gemara here. Okay, going back to the Mishnah, what did it say? That ma'arvin lenazir b'yayin, you can make an eruv for a nazir even with wine, even though you can't drink the wine. Our Mishnah does not follow the opinion of Beishamai. The Tanya Beishamai yomrim ein ma'arvin lenazir b'yayin. You can't make an eruv for a nazir with wine. Ul Yisrael b'truma or for Yisrael with truma. Beisil argue and say ma'arvin lenazir b'yayin ul Yisrael b'truma. You could make an eruv for a nazir with wine or Yisrael with truma. Amalem Beisil leBeishamai. So Beisil, to prove his opinion, says to Beishamai, Iyata maidim shema'arvin legadol b'yom kippurim. If you want to make an eruv tchumen on Yom Kippur, how are you going to make an eruv tchumen on Yom Kippur? So you can't eat on Yom Kippur. So how are you making the eruv for a gadol? So aren't you maidim that you're going to make an eruv on Yom Kippur? Amru lahen. So Beishamai answers, avol. Sorry, avol. Rashi says avol means emes. Yes, true. I'm maidim that you could make an eruv on Yom Kippur. What's the raya that Beisil is bringing? Who could eat the food that you're making for the eruv of Yom Kippur? Not the person that's making the eruv himself. You can give that food to eat to a cotton. So the same thing also, when you get a nazir that uses wine, he can't drink the wine himself, but he can give it to someone else. So Amru Lehen, so Beisil says to Ben Shammai, Kishem shema'arvin legadol b'yom kippurim, kach ma'arvin lenazir b'yayin. So just like on Yom Kippur, you can make an eruv and give the food to a cotton, so to a nazir you can give the wine to drink to someone else, or Yisrael b'truma, and Yisrael can give truma to eat koyin. Or Beis Shammai doesn't hold of this raya of Beisil. Why not? Hasam ikisuda ruyim b'bayt. In the case of Yom Kippur, you're putting down food that when you're putting it down b'bayt yayim, you could eat it. On Yom Kippur you won't be allowed to eat it, but b'shas you're putting it down, you can eat it. Here the Nazir is putting down wine, or the Yisrael is putting down truma. As he's putting it down, as he's making the eruv, you can't even eat it b'chlal. So therefore it's much worse. Sagt the Gemara weiter.
Took on Naziris from the start of Shabbos.
He what? He took on from even before, even on Friday. If a person, so then l'chayre Beis Shammai would be maida. Correct, according to what the Gemara says there. Sagt die Gemara, Keman deloi kechananya. This brisa that we just learned until now regarding the opinion of Beis Shammai will not be like Hananya in the brisa that we're about to quote here. The Tanya in another brisa, Hananya quoted Beis Shammai's shitta much more chomer. The Tanya Hananya oimer, Kal atzmon shel Beis Shammai, lo hoyu moedim be'erev. Beis Shammai's entire opinion regarding how you make an erev tchumen is only ad sheyotzi mitosai v'chol klei tashmish l'sham. If you're making erev tchumen, which the point is that you live there and therefore you can walk from there another 2,000 amas, you have to carry out everything that you have, everything that you need for Shabbos, your bed, all your clothing, whatever you're going to wear, in order to show that you taka live there. It's not enough to take out food to establish a place of dwelling there. You have to take everything out. Okay, so what we said before, that Beis Shammai had a problem with a Nazir, with a Yisrael. Beis Shammai holds, according to Hanan, you have to take everything out. Now the Gemara brings another brayse where you see this opinion of Beis Shammai. According to who there's a brayse go that it says, Erev b'shchayrim, a person makes an Eirov and he's wearing black clothing. So he came out with black clothing. So that he brought out for the Eirov. Lo yetze b'levanim. He shouldn't go out, he can't use this Eirov to go out with white clothing. So now the Gemara explains the pshat in this brayse. B'levanim lo yetze. Does it mean that he can't go out with white clothing, but b'shchayrim he could go out? Again, B'levanim lo yetze. B'levanim, if he made the Erev and he went out with white clothing, lo yetze b'shchayrim. He should not go out with black clothing. Come on, according to who is this brayse? Omer Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Hanani v'aliba de Beis Shammai. It goes according to Hananya and according to Beis Shammai that you have to bring everything out to that place on Shabbos. But now the Gemara clarifies the pshat of the brayse. Now according to Hananya, b'shchayrim hu de lo yetze, he can't go out with black clothing, ha b'levanim yetze, but with his white clothing he could go out. Why is that? He shouldn't be able to use this Erev at all. Ha'amar ad sheyetzi mitose v'chol v'klei tashmishay. The Erev is only an Erev if you take out your bed and everything that you're going to use. So if this person, let's say today, a person wears a black kapote on Shabbos and a white shirt. So if he only took out his kapote and he didn't take out his shirt to that place, so you didn't take out kol klei tashmishay. So you can't rely on this Erev Tchumen at all. So why does it say in the Braise you could use the Erev Tchumen for your clothing that you took out, but not for the one that you didn't take out? So the Gemara says, Enachanami. Hachikama. Again, he did Achiyetzi mitase v'kli tashmishay l'sham. And for the Gemara, Hachikama. Erev b'levanim. If you made your Erev only taking out your white clothing, and v'hutzrach l'shchayrim, and on Shabbos you need your black clothing as well, af b'levanim lo yetze. So then you can't use this Erev at all, not even to go out with your white clothing. Come on, Omer Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Hanani v'aliba de Beis Shammai. This goes according to Beis Shammai that an Erev Tchumen only works if you take out all of the clothing that you're going to have to use on Shabbos. If you miss one thing, one item that you're going to end up needing on Shabbos, then you can't rely on the entire Erev. You could. And B'Payel, he only needed white clothing, so then that's called klei tashmishay. That's called klei tashmishay. He doesn't need it, but if he made an Erev with white clothing and he needs black clothing, so then he didn't take out kol klei tashmishay.
He's still considered in the city, or he's now
No. Wherever he is, I'm saying because he took out, now he has a lot of his belongings there. Stama, he has another bed here as well. In other words, according to Beis Shammai, the only way to make an Erev is you're going to have kol klei tashmishay where you are and kol klei tashmishay in the place where your Erev is to be able to establish a dwelling there. Sumches Aymer B'chulin. What did it say in our Mishnah? Sumches says that in order to make an Erev for Yisrael, you can't use Truma. He has to use Chulin. So he argues with the Tanakama that says that a Yisrael could use Truma. Regarding the fact that the Tanakama said that a Nazir could use wine, that he doesn't argue on. Why not? My time. And for the Gemara, Efshe de Mitchlan is Iruse. Because if he's a Nazir, he has the option to always be shoyel neder on this Naziris and stop his Naziris. So he'll be able to use it. Fragt the Gemara, Ihachi Truma nami Efshe de Mitchel ilavei. When you separate Truma, you could also retract it and make it back chulin, so it'll be able to be fit for use for you. And for the Gemara, no, it's not going to work. If you retract the Truma that you gave, hadra letivlo. So then you didn't separate Truma yet, so it's all tevel, and you're not allowed to eat from it before you take Truma. Fragt the Gemara, somebody could do something else. You can take off the Truma from this Truma that you're using for the Eirov, and then you'll give Truma from another place. So the Gemara, no, that's not an eitzah, because leinechshedu chaverim, there's a brayse that says leinechshedu chaverim litrim shaloim and amukif. Talmidei chachamim chaverim, they're not suspected of giving truma when it's not there together in the same place where you were taking the truma on the other produce. That's the way you're supposed to give truma, min amukif. Min amukif means in the same place. So stam to take off truma from something else that's not even here, you're not supposed to give truma that way. You're right. I mean, no. The Mefarshim say, even though the Gemara is using the term chaverim, because that's the lashon of the brayse, but it means that's l'chatchila, the way it's supposed to be done. So we're not going to rely on this eitzah for eid of tchumen that you could give truma from something else if it's not the way it's supposed to be done. Frek the Gemara, how about v'lifresh hana minei ubei? How about from this food itself? If you have enough food, so he could be mevatel the part of the truma that he took off, and then part of it he could still be tairim for the truma. And for the Gemara, the less bashiyura. We're talking over here about a person that put food for the eid of tchumen. He doesn't have enough of a shear. Doesn't have enough of a shear to be able to give the truma. He has to have enough for the eid of, and he has to have enough for the truma. He has exactly 2 sudas for the eid of. Frek the Gemara, my paske. Why are you establishing that that's the case of the Mishnah? This is the exact case that Sumchus is arguing. In a case where there's exactly 2 sudas and not more. Elo, Dr. Gemara, there's a different reason. Sumchus savala kerabanan. Sumchus holds like the Rabbanan, the Amma. The Rabbanan said, Kol dava shu mishum shvus gazru alav ben hashmashis. Anything that's awesome with the Rabbanan, you're not allowed to do ben hashmashis. To be mafresh truma is awesome the Rabbanan. It looks like you're being Mesaken Mana. It looks like you're being Mesaken Akeli. So you're not allowed to be Mafresh Truma with the Rabbanan. So he holds like the Rabbanan that say that even Ben Hashmashis, you're not allowed to do an Ism with the Rabbanan, even though it might even be considered to be for the purpose of a mitzvah. For an Eid of Tchumen, we're going to see later in the Gemara, Eid of Tchumen is made for the purpose of a mitzvah, but according to the Rabbanan, you're not allowed to make a Eid of Tchumen, you're not allowed to be over on a shvus to make an Eid of Tchumen even for the purpose of a mitzvah. So therefore it's not going to be an option. You're going to be shayl on the truma, you're going to have to be mafresh truma again, and that's a shvus. When you get on nazir and yayin, there's no problem of a nazir being mataneder from his naziris. We learned this in the very last blot of Masechta Shabbos. If you remember, it speaks about over there being mataneder on Shabbos, and it says a nazir is allowed to be shayl neder on his naziris on Shabbos. So therefore that's not a problem. But to be mafresh truma, that is an issue. This is also different than what it said before in the Gemara according to Beis Shammai. Before, according to the Beis Shammai, it said that we don't go according to Ben Hashmashis. We look at mibayd yain, the food that you can't eat in Yom Kippur, mibayd yain, you still could eat it. Over here, we're saying that you go according to Ben Hashmashis. Zakta Gemara vayta kaman az lahadet nan. According to who? There's this Mishnah that we learned. Go. Yasha Amru, there's an opinion, a Yasha Amru that said, Hakoil lefi ma shahu adam. The shear of Eid of Tchumen, for the Sud of Eid of Tchumen, it's every person individually. Okay, so this is a Mishnah that starts off with other halachas. There's usually, it comes in Torah, you have the shiurim that are universal for everyone. A kazayis or a kibetza, these are universal shiurim. It's not personal, but then there are certain shiurim that goes according to an individual. So Yasha Amru, Hakoil lefi ma shahu adam. Malay kumtzei mincha. Malay kumtzei mincha. By a carbon mincha, the kohen has to take a kaimitz off the mincha. How big is a kaimitz? There's no shear. Every kohen is according to his kaimitz. Malay chafnav ketairis. The ketairis that you have to have a handful. How much is that? Also according to each kohen individually. The shear that you're not allowed to drink on Yom Kippur is a cheekful. How big is a cheekful? Each individual according to his mouth. And he said, in this Mishnah it says, the Yesh Amru say it's the same thing by an Eiruv. The shear of 2 sudas for an Eiruv is every person individually. So who's the one that says this? Up until here we were learning 2 blot in Gemara, that it gives set shiurim for every single person. So here we're saying that it goes according to the individual. It's like the Gemara, Keman Amr Abzeiris Sumchisi. This is Sumchis, the Amar Mai the Chazi Lei Ba'inon. Just like Sumchis says in our Mishnah, a Nazir could only use yayin because he could be shayl neder, and a Yisrael has to use chulin. It has to be something that you yourself can eat, not something that someone else can eat. So therefore, he also holds that we go according to the shear of the individual. So the Gemara,
Mishnah is Sumchis?
That Mishnah of Yesha Omru, that Mishnah where it says Yesha Omru goes according to Sumchis. It's a Yesha Omru and that's Sumchis. So the Gemara, Leime pliga de Rab Shimon ben Elazar. So now would we have to say that Sumchis argues on Rab Shimon ben Elazar that we quoted before? The Tanya, Rab Shimon ben Elazar, Oimer, Ma'arvin l'chayla l'zaken kedei mezaynai. For a chayla and a zaken, So you give him according to his mazain. Ularafsin besuda beinanis shel kol adam. And for a rafsin you give a suda beinanis for every single person. So the Gemara says, Tirgeme achayla v'zakin. Rab Shimon ben Elazar that says that for a chayla and a zakin you can give him a less of a shear. That's a special kula dafka for a chayla and a zakin. Avol rafsin, when it comes to a person that eats a lot, batla daita etzel kol adam. Over here, by a rafsin batla daita etzel kol adam, and you go according to the average that a person eats. So Rab Shimon ben Elazar was only saying this, that you go according to the individual, b'negeta chayla and a zakin. Otherwise, though, he does not hold like sumchis. Okay, adkan.